Welcome back, everyone, to the deep dive. Today, we are tackling something I think a lot of you will find really valuable and maybe even a little bit tricky: how to think fast and speak smart in English.
Absolutely. And we've got some great material to draw on for this deep dive. We'll be looking mainly at this book called Think Fast, Speak Smart, which is actually part of a larger series called English from A to Z in IELTS Preparation.
Yes, so whether you're prepping for the IELTS or just want to feel more confident and fluent in any English conversation, this deep dive is going to be packed with tips and strategies you can start using right away.
Exactly. We are really going to get into the nitty-gritty of how to not just think more quickly in English, but also how to express yourself clearly, even under pressure. We're talking about building confidence and fluency from the inside out.
And the great thing is we're going to be exploring some really concrete techniques. We'll be looking at ways to boost your vocabulary recall in the moment, the foundational importance of truly active listening, how using simple sentences can actually make you sound smarter, and why those well-timed pauses can be so powerful.
We'll also be diving into the importance of consistent practice, of course, because that's really where the magic happens, as well as how to stay calm when you're feeling the heat, the subtle but significant role of body language, and ultimately how all of this contributes to building unshakable confidence in your speaking.
Sounds great. So, should we jump right in?
Let's do it.
Okay, first up, let's talk about vocabulary. I think most people would agree that having a wide vocabulary is a huge asset when you're trying to think fast in any language.
Yeah, for sure. And what's interesting is the source material really emphasizes the idea of being proactive about building what it calls a mental vocabulary bank.
Yeah.
So it's not just about learning lists of words passively. It's about really organizing your vocabulary
Yeah.
in a way that makes it easier to access quickly when you need it.
So kind of like creating those mental shortcuts, right? Instead of just having this jumbled mass of words floating around in your head, you're actively categorizing and grouping them in a way that makes sense to you.
Exactly. So, for example, the book suggests practicing word lists, sure, but it also really highlights the effectiveness of studying words in categories. Like, let's say you have a group of words related to hobbies. You could have a list of nouns like novels, photography, hiking, cooking, and then a list of verbs like to read, to photograph, to explore, to bake, and then adjectives like interesting, relaxing, challenging, creative.
Right. So you're not just memorizing individual words in isolation, you're thinking about how they relate to each other and to different topics, which helps you make those connections faster when you're speaking.
Yeah, exactly. And imagine how much richer your descriptions would be if you could instantly access a whole range of vocabulary related to that topic. Instead of just saying, I like to read, you could say, I'm really into mystery novels. I find them so suspenseful and intriguing, and I love trying to figure out who the culprit is.
Yeah.
Just add so much more depth and nuance to what you're saying.
Absolutely. It also makes you sound so much more fluent when you're not constantly searching for the right word. And speaking of finding the right word, the material also talks about the power of using synonyms.
Oh, yeah, that's a brilliant tip. Because let's face it, sometimes you just can't quite grasp that one perfect word when you're in the middle of a sentence, right?
Happens to me all the time. You know it's in there somewhere, but you just can't quite pull it out.
Yeah. And that's when synonyms become your best friend. Like, if you can't remember the word important, no problem. Just think, okay, what are some other words that have a similar meaning? Crucial, vital, essential, significant. Any of those would work perfectly well in that sentence.
It's like having a backup plan, right? If one word fails you, you've got a whole arsenal of other options ready to go.
Exactly. And the point the book really drives home is that clarity is key. It's more important to keep your message clear and flowing than to get hung up on finding the absolute perfect word.
I like that. It takes the pressure off a little bit. And speaking of practice, the source material also recommends specifically practicing with different themes to really boost your vocabulary recall.
Yes, that's such a smart strategy. Like, maybe one day you focus on words and phrases related to travel, another day you tackle food, another day it's technology, and so on. It just helps you get comfortable talking about a wider range of topics and ensures you're not caught off guard when those topics come up in conversation.
Right. It's like building your mental toolbox with all the tools you need for different situations. And one tool that I think is particularly valuable for sounding natural and fluent is mastering those phrases and collocations.
Oh, absolutely. The book actually talks about that quite a bit, about how using common word combinations, those chunks of language that native speakers use all the time, can really make a difference in how fluent you sound.
Yeah, because even if you know all the individual words, if you're not putting them together in the way that native speakers do, it can sound a bit unnatural or even a bit awkward.
Exactly. Like, for example, you could say, he has a good sense of humor, but it sounds much more natural and idiomatic to say he has a great sense of humor. Or instead of saying she has a personality that is easygoing, you'd say she has an easygoing personality.
It's those subtle differences that really make you sound more like a native speaker, even if you're not using super advanced vocabulary.
Right. And the more you practice using those phrases and collocations, the more they'll just become second nature to you.
So, the main takeaway here with vocabulary isn't just about passively learning lists. It's about actively organizing your vocabulary, practicing retrieving it in different contexts, and really focusing on using those words and phrases when you speak.
Exactly. It's a continuous process of building and activating your word knowledge, so it's there when you need it, ready to be used in real-life conversations.
Okay, so we've talked about the importance of building a solid vocabulary, but now let's move on to another essential skill for thinking fast and speaking smart: active listening.
Active listening. This is such a crucial aspect of communication, and yet I think a lot of people underestimate its importance.
Yes, it's far more than just politely waiting for your turn to speak. Right.
Right. The source material really emphasizes that active listening is an active process. It's about truly focusing your attention and processing information in real time, not just passively hearing words go in one ear and out the other. It's the foundation upon which clear and thoughtful communication is built.
Because it's not just about understanding the words themselves, it's about understanding the speaker's underlying message, their emotions, and their intent. And it's that deeper level of engagement that allows you to process information more efficiently and respond more quickly and appropriately.
Exactly. And one of the biggest challenges in active listening, and the book points this out, is the tendency to focus so much on what you're going to say next that you don't fully absorb what the other person is saying in the present moment.
Oh, I'm so guilty of that. My mind starts racing ahead, formulating my brilliant response, and then I realize I've completely missed the last few sentences.
It's so easy to do, right? But the source material stresses the importance of really concentrating on the speaker's words, paying attention to their tone of voice, and noticing their body language. Those nonverbal cues can tell you so much about how they're feeling and what they're really trying to communicate.
So it's about being fully present in the conversation, not just mentally, but also emotionally. And when you're fully present and attentive, your responses are going to be much more relevant and ultimately quicker because they're rooted in a genuine understanding of the speaker's message.
Right, you're not just reacting to a superficial interpretation of their words, you're responding to the whole picture.
And the book gives a great example of this involving a conversation about environmental issues.
Oh yeah, the recycling example.
Yes. So
Okay.
someone mentions recycling, and if you're passively listening, you might just hear that word and think, oh, okay, recycling, I know what that is.
But if you're actively listening, you're going to be paying attention to why they brought up recycling, how it connects to the broader issue of environmental protection, and what specific points they're making about its importance.
And that deeper understanding allows you to formulate a more informed and timely response. Maybe you share a statistic you've heard about the positive impact of recycling, or you mention a local community initiative that you're involved in. It shows that you've truly engaged with the information.
Exactly. And that deeper engagement also helps you remember the information better, so you can access it more easily in future conversations.
The source material suggests practicing this kind of digestive listening by mentally summarizing what you're hearing or trying to connect it to things you already know. It's like building those mental pathways that allow for quicker processing and retrieval of information.
And don't forget about those subtle cues, those nonverbal aspects of communication. The book talks about how important it is to pay attention to body language, facial expressions, and even those brief pauses.
Right, like the classic example of someone saying, I'm fine, but their crossed arms and furrowed brow are clearly saying something else entirely.
Exactly. Those inconsistencies are so important to notice because they allow you to respond with more empathy and appropriateness. Maybe you gently ask if they're sure they're okay, or you adjust your own tone to match their unspoken feelings. It's about reading between the lines and responding to the whole message, not just the surface level words.
And that kind of sensitivity and awareness really makes you a much better communicator. And so the key to becoming a more active listener is practice. The source material recommends making a conscious effort to minimize distractions when someone is speaking and really focusing on understanding their message before you even start thinking about what you want to say.
Right. Put that inner voice on mute for a moment and just really try to tune in to what the other person is saying. You can even practice this with podcasts or audio recordings. Listen to a segment and then try to summarize the main points or discuss them with someone else. And of course, the best practice is in real-life conversations. Make it your primary goal to understand before you respond.
And if you can practice with native speakers or those at a more advanced level, even better. It really challenges you to process English in real time and navigate those subtle nuances of meaning that can be harder to pick up on when you're still learning. Language exchange partners or online conversation groups can be great for this.
Exactly. And ultimately, what active listening does is it helps you think faster on your feet and make you sound much more intelligent and thoughtful because your responses are more relevant, insightful, and show that you've genuinely engaged with what the other person has said.
Okay, so we've talked about boosting your vocabulary and honing your active listening skills. Now let's move on to something that might seem counterintuitive when it comes to sounding intelligent, using simple sentences.
I know, right? You might think that in order to sound smart, you need to use all those complex grammatical structures and fancy words. But the book actually argues that using clear and simple sentences can be much more effective and even make you sound more intelligent.
I think there's this misconception that longer sentences equal smarter sentences. But when you're trying to think and speak quickly, that can often lead to grammatical errors and losing your train of thought.
Yeah, for sure. And the book makes a really good point about how clarity is paramount for effective communication. If your sentences are too long and convoluted, your listener is going to get lost trying to follow your logic, and your message is going to get muddled.
The source material provides a fantastic example to illustrate this. They compare a long, convoluted sentence like, I am of the opinion that the primary reason for my enjoyment of reading literature is attributable to its capacity to facilitate an escape from the quotidian realities of existence, to a much simpler sentence like, I enjoy reading because it helps me escape reality.
And it's so obvious, right? The second sentence gets the point across much more directly, it's easier to understand, and it's just as effective in conveying the core idea.
And especially when you're under pressure, like in an exam or a job interview, that simplicity becomes even more valuable. It helps you organize your thoughts more easily and makes your speech much more direct and impactful.
Right, because speaking smart isn't about using the most obscure vocabulary or the longest, most complex sentences. It's about communicating your ideas effectively and making sure your listener understands what you're saying.
And so the source material's advice here is to focus on conveying one main idea per sentence and to avoid getting bogged down in unnecessary details or tangents within a single sentence. And they suggest starting with that basic subject plus verb plus object structure as a solid foundation for building sentences quickly and efficiently.
It's like building a house. You start with a simple frame, and then you can add more details and embellishments later if you want to. But that basic structure needs to be solid in order for the whole thing to stand up.
Makes sense. So simplicity really is key. It allows for faster and clearer communication, which ultimately means your message gets across to your listener without any confusion. Okay, now let's move on to something that a lot of learners find challenging. But that's actually a super powerful tool for thinking fast and speaking smart. The power of pausing.
It can definitely feel counterintuitive, right? When you're trying to speak fast, the idea of intentionally pausing might seem like the opposite of what you should be doing. But the book makes a really compelling argument for why strategically placed pauses are actually incredibly beneficial for both the speaker and the listener.
Yeah, because I think we often feel like we need to fill every gap in the conversation, that silence is somehow a sign of weakness or a lack of fluency. But the source material really highlights how well-timed pauses can actually enhance the clarity and overall impact of your speech.
Exactly. It's like giving your listener those little mental breaks to process what you've just said. And it also gives you, the speaker, a moment to collect your thoughts, organize your ideas, and make sure you're expressing yourself coherently.
They even point out that in exams like the IELTS, taking a brief pause after a question is perfectly acceptable and even expected. It shows the examiner that you're taking the time to formulate a thoughtful response, which can actually work in your favor.
Right. It's not about rushing to fill the silence. It's about using those pauses strategically to enhance your message. And the source material really encourages learners not to be afraid to take a breath and a moment to collect their thoughts before speaking.
Because it actually conveys confidence and control, not hesitation. It shows that you're taking the time to choose your words carefully and present your ideas in a clear and organized way.
And the book suggests a really helpful exercise for getting more comfortable with pausing. Recording yourself speaking and intentionally inserting those short pauses after phrases or at the end of sentences. It helps you become more aware of your pacing and how those pauses can affect the flow of your speech.
It's like anything else. The more you practice, the more natural it becomes. And ultimately, what pausing does is it helps you think while speaking. It allows you to slow down your internal thought process just enough to make sure you're expressing yourself clearly and effectively.
So the message is, don't be afraid of the silence. Embrace those pauses. They're your friend.
Okay, so we've covered a lot of ground here. We've talked about vocabulary, active listening, simple sentences, and pausing. But now let's move on to the foundation of it all. Practice, practice, practice. Because no matter how many tips and techniques you learn, the only way to truly improve your ability to think fast and speak smart in English is through consistent and deliberate practice.
Absolutely. The source material really hammers this point home, emphasizing that practice is what makes all the difference. It's what takes all those strategies from theory to reality and helps you integrate them into your natural way of speaking.
And they break down effective practice into several key areas. First and foremost is engaging in real conversations, finding opportunities to speak English with a variety of people, tutors, language exchange partners, classmates, friends, and making an effort to discuss a diverse range of topics so you're not caught off guard when unexpected subjects come up.
They even suggest a fun little challenge. Choose a random topic, set a timer for 1 minute, and try to speak continuously about that topic without any long pauses. Even if you have to make things up or ask yourself questions to keep going, the goal is to push your brain to think and articulate in English under pressure.
I love that. It's like a mental workout for your English speaking skills. And then, of course, there's the importance of practicing specifically for exams if that's your goal. The book recommends simulating the actual test environment as closely as possible, setting timers, practicing answering typical exam questions, and recording yourself so you can evaluate your performance and identify areas for improvement.
Reviewing those recordings can be really eye-opening. You might notice that you hesitate a lot in certain situations, or you tend to use certain filler words excessively, or you struggle to find the right vocabulary quickly enough. And once you know what your weaknesses are, you can target your practice more effectively.
And if exams aren't your main focus, the source material still recommends recording and reviewing your general speaking practice. Whether you're chatting with a friend, practicing a presentation, or just talking aloud about your day, listening back to those recordings can give you valuable insights into your natural speaking patterns and areas where you might need to focus your attention.
And then there's the whole area of just immersing yourself in the English language as much as possible. Reading books and articles, watching movies and TV shows, listening to podcasts and music. All of that input helps your brain get used to processing English more efficiently, which in turn improves your ability to think and speak more quickly.
It's like training your brain to think in English, so it becomes more automatic and less of a conscious effort. And the book suggests making an effort to actively notice new expressions and phrases you come across in your reading and listening, and then consciously try to incorporate them into your own speaking.
It's about expanding your repertoire of language and getting comfortable using it in different contexts.
Yeah.
And finally, the source material really stresses the importance of consistency in your practice. It's much more effective to do short, focused practice sessions on a daily basis than to try to cram everything in once a week.
It's like going to the gym. You wouldn't expect to see results if you only went once a month, right? It's those regular workouts that build strength and endurance.
Exactly. And it's the same with language learning. Those short, consistent bursts of practice are what make all the difference in the long run. Okay, so we've talked about the importance of practice, but now let's address another crucial aspect of speaking well, especially in those high-pressure situations. Staying calm under pressure.
Oh, that's a big one. Because when we're nervous, our minds tend to race, our thoughts get jumbled, and it becomes much harder to think clearly and express ourselves effectively.
Right. And the book offers some really valuable advice on how to manage those nerves and stay calm and focused when you're feeling the pressure. Things like simple, deep breathing exercises where you take a slow, deep breath in, hold it for a few seconds, and then exhale slowly.
Yeah.
That can really help to calm your nervous system and clear your head.
It's like hitting the reset button on your anxiety. And they also recommend practicing positive self-talk, reminding yourself of your strengths, acknowledging your progress, and reframing mistakes as learning opportunities.
It's about shifting that inner dialogue from self-criticism to self-encouragement. And they even talk about the power of visualization, mentally picturing yourself speaking confidently and successfully in the situation that you're nervous about. It's like a mental rehearsal that can really help to reduce anxiety beforehand.
Because if you can convince your mind that you can do it, your body is much more likely to follow suit.
Exactly. It's all about building that confidence from the inside out. And the more you practice speaking in those challenging situations, the more comfortable and confident you'll become over time. It's about gradually expanding your comfort zone and proving to yourself that you can handle it.
And the amazing thing is, when you're calm and confident, it really shows in your speaking. Your voice is more steady, your thoughts are more clear, and you just come across as more articulate and persuasive.
So learning to manage those nerves is absolutely essential for speaking well under pressure. And it's a skill that you can develop with practice, just like any other aspect of language learning.
Okay, so we're almost there. We've talked about vocabulary listening, sentence structure, pausing, practice, and staying calm. But now let's touch on one final element that's often overlooked but can have a huge impact on how you're perceived as a speaker: your body language.
Oh, yeah. Body language is so important. It's that unspoken communication that can either reinforce or undermine your message.
The source material really emphasizes how our body language can either project confidence or betray our nerves. And they offer some practical tips on how to use your body language to your advantage. Things like maintaining good posture standing or sitting up straight with your shoulders relaxed, which not only makes you appear more confident, but also helps you breathe more easily and think more clearly.
And then there's the importance of making eye contact with your listener. Not staring them down, of course, but maintaining a natural and steady gaze that shows you're engaged in the conversation and confident in what you're saying.
And don't forget about the power of using gestures and facial expressions to emphasize your points and add a bit of dynamism to your speaking. A well-placed hand gesture or a genuine smile can really enhance your message and make you appear more engaging and approachable.
But it's important to strike a balance, as the source material points out. You don't want to overdo it with the gestures or facial expressions to the point where it becomes distracting. It's all about using your body language in a natural and authentic way that complements your words and helps to convey your message more effectively.
So it's all about being mindful of how you're presenting yourself physically, not just verbally, because even if you're saying all the right words, if your body language is sending mixed signals, your message is going to get lost in translation.
Exactly. Okay, so we've covered a lot of ground today. We've talked about a wide range of techniques and strategies for thinking fast and speaking smart in English, but ultimately it all boils down to one key ingredient: confidence.
Absolutely. Because when you're confident in your ability to communicate, it shows in everything you do, how you speak, how you hold yourself, how you interact with others. Confidence is like a magnet. It draws people in and makes them want to listen to what you have to say.
And the source material really emphasizes the importance of building that confidence through positive reinforcement, celebrating your successes, no matter how small they might seem, acknowledging your progress, and focusing on what you're doing well rather than dwelling on your mistakes.
It's about shifting that internal dialogue from self-doubt to self-belief, because the more you believe in yourself, the more others will believe in you too. And the source material also recommends seeking out opportunities to practice speaking in real-life situations, even if they feel a bit scary at first.
Joining English-speaking groups or clubs, attending workshops or meetups, volunteering in your community. All of those are great ways to push yourself outside of your comfort zone and gain experience speaking in different contexts.
And the more you practice, the more comfortable and confident you'll become. It's like building a muscle. The more you use it, the stronger it gets. And eventually, speaking English will feel less like a chore and more like a natural and enjoyable part of your life.
So, to sum up, thinking fast and speaking smart in English is a combination of skills and strategies that you can develop and hone through consistent effort, practice, and a positive mindset.
It's about building a solid vocabulary, mastering the art of active listening, embracing the power of simple sentences and strategic pauses, practicing consistently in a variety of settings, learning to stay calm under pressure, and using your body language to your advantage.
And most importantly, it's about believing in yourself and your ability to communicate effectively in English. Because when you believe in yourself, anything is possible.
That is a fantastic takeaway. And I think it's a great place for us to wrap up this deep dive. We hope these insights have been valuable for you and given you some concrete strategies to work with.
And as you continue your English learning journey, remember to be patient with yourself, celebrate your progress, and never stop practicing.
Absolutely. And now, for a final thought to leave you with, think about all the techniques we discussed today and choose just one that you want to focus on in your next English conversation. Maybe it's active listening, maybe it's using simpler sentences, or maybe it's intentionally incorporating those strategic pauses. Whatever it is, make a conscious effort to apply that one technique and then take a moment afterwards to reflect on how it impacted your conversation. Did you notice a difference in your ability to think fast and speak smart?
It's a small challenge, but it can make a big difference in your overall progress. Thanks so much for joining us for this deep dive, and we'll catch you next time.
Bye, everyone.